The Texas justice system is messy, so let's break it down. You're listening to So You Got Arrested, the podcast that tells you what really happens after an arrest. Hosted by BRCK Criminal Defense attorneys, we talk to the people who've lived it, worked in it, and been shaped by it. Whether you're facing charges or just want to understand your rights, your options, and the smart moves that could change everything, we've got your back.
This is So You Got Arrested from BRCK Criminal Defense. We have our guest today, Sal Martinez. Now, I like having Sal on the podcast because Sal's an interesting individual. Sal was a former DPS trooper, a former DEA agent. He's a best-selling author. He has a book, Narc, Convictions of an Undercover Agent, that you can get on Amazon.
1999.
He also is a bail bondsman, which is what I want to talk about today. So we have Fiesta going on in San Antonio. This is the now second week of Fiesta. During Fiesta, people tend to get arrested a little more frequently than they might otherwise. Sal, given that you were a DPS trooper and a DEA agent, now you're a bail bondsman, I'm sure you've received calls from friends or family at times saying, hey, my son got arrested or my little one got arrested,
Sure.
A friend got arrested. What do I do? Do you ever get those calls?
Constantly. And literally get maybe 3-4 calls a day. And I'm a small bail bondsman that handles Wilson County, Atascosa, and Live Oak, not south of San Antonio. But I get calls from other areas. And then friends or whatever, associates, even law enforcement and judges and attorneys will call me because they know how I take care of my clients. I pride myself on making sure that they know what the process is because, it could take 2-3 years before this whole nightmare is over with. So as for me as a bail bondsman, my primary focus is to empower my client. I need to let them know this is what you're responsible for. This is what you're getting bonded out for. You have my regulations to be following through with, but at the same time, the judge has magistrated you, have issued some restrictions, and you need to follow that. If you don't, and somebody finds out, the cops, the judge, or the victim, they can come at you and rearrest you for violating the bond conditions.
Yeah, it's interesting because as a practicing criminal defense attorney, I had a family member a couple of years back get in trouble in Houston, Harris County. And the first thing I did was look for a bail bond company because to me, that's always number one priority is get them out of jail, right?
That's right.
And so people get into this bail bond process, and a lot of times they don't understand it. So I get plenty of calls from people, and during that first consultation with them, they'll ask me questions about their bail bond and how does it work and what does it mean. And so that's what I want to address today is, questions that people have about the bail bond system. What is a bail bond? What are my obligations on the bail bond? Okay. So to make it clear, what a bail bond is it's a form of financial collateral that you're going to come back to court. So think about it this way.
I put that up.
You get arrested for an offense. In theory, they could hold you in jail, in custody, until that offense, that allegation is resolved in court. But we don't do that, okay? Here in the state of Texas, we say, with the exception of certain offenses, capital murder, some serious sex offenses now with the recent changes to the law, we say you can get out, but you have to promise to come back to court. And as a promise to come back to court, we're going to make you put up financial collateral. And that's where a bail bondsman comes into play.
Yes.
The bail bondsman is actually the one putting up the financial collateral, right?
Correct. Yeah. And what it is, these bonds are, we have to get authorized in these counties through the sheriff. There's bail bond board counties like San Antonio, Bexar County, and you have to get approval from a board. It's a little bit more strict. So I'd rather stay out in the county. I'm a smaller bail bonds company compared to these are the big ones. So what you do, the bond is I put up the financial amount. Let's say the bond is $10,000. So I have to show the sheriff who was already approved. I give him a surety bond, and it's a piece of paper. It's like an IOU. Sheriff, I'm going to put up $10,000 to get Johnny out, and I'll be liable for him if he doesn't show up to court. So what I do is I get hold of somebody who's going to be responsible, like a third party, an indemnity, who's going to sign a promissory note to freedom bail bonds and say, hey, Sal, I promise that Johnny's going to go to court. If not, I'll be liable for the $10,000. So I get that, get their identification, file that away, get some more information on them too. So I'm going kind of fast on that part. But what it does is I need the indemnity. The person signing out Johnny is more important to me than the actual defendant, because if the defendant runs off again, I'm going to be focusing on the person who signed that piece of paper. So after a year, if I don't catch them, which I turn into a bounty hunter, or they call
let me ask that. What is a bounty hunter?
There's no such thing actually legally as a bounty hunter. They're called private investigators. And in my
so Dog the bounty hunter is not a...
Well, they call me Chihuahua the bounty hunter, but I'll go bite their ankles. So you go after these people, and I take it personal. I'll go after it, and I'll do surveillance. I'll do a lot of research on the individual, and the first place I find people is on Facebook.
Right.
I'll find out what they're bragging about, where they're hanging out at.
So you understand that you're telling people how to avoid you if they run from your bond.
I like the hunt.
So these are people that have run away or absconded.
Yeah, I guess I jumped ahead on that.
You're financially responsible for them.
That's right, $10,000. Hey, I lose sleep at night. So, but again, if I don't catch them within a year, the person who signed Johnny out is going to be liable for that 10. But I don't like to do paperwork, so I try to catch them the sooner the better.
Yeah.
And before once the bond has been submitted to the sheriff's office, we'll go back to that process. Sheriff, I'm getting Johnny out. I'll be liable. Johnny comes out of the jail, and he's going to have some restrictions made by the judge regarding traveling and maybe it's like restraining order.
No drugs.
No drugs. You can't do this. You can't play guns. And certain restrictions. As for me as a bondsman, I'm a lot more lenient. I just want them to be reporting sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, depending on what kind of risk they are in my mind. That's my judgment. Other bond companies are a lot more strict. They want them to be there in an office every week, and I don't like to play like that. People have a life to live, and I tell people when I get them out, hey, listen, don't take advantage of my kindness. You report by texting or calling me and let me know where you're at. Okay, I always want to know where they're at and where they're working. If anybody changes address or phone number, I take that person. I say, listen, why are you trying to be sneaky? These little signs will tell me that they're going to be higher risk. So we get them out of jail. And then they got to get their car out of impound, or the family's already working on that. And then from there, then I explain to them how to get hold of the people in the court system, whether it's going to be the district court or the county court. They need to find who the court coordinator is, or the clerk's office, and I give them the points of contact to call monthly to find out if they have a court date.
If their case has been filed.
That's right. If it's been filed, or it's for felonies, it's indictments. And for the county court, it usually takes about maybe 6 to 8 months minimum before they go to court. And then from there, the process lasts, like I said, anywhere from several months to several years.
Sure. And
I've had clients out for 4 or 5 years trying to resolve their cases.
And during that time, they're out on that bond.
Out on my bond.
They're still reporting to you.
Oh, yeah. I get people say, hey, I paid you your 10%. So I'm done. No. You wait a second. You're out because of me, and you need to follow through with these regulations. So I need to enlighten them and remind them that if not, they would be in jail. So if we don't bond them out within a misdemeanor, you can get 30 days, you get a PR bond.
Days.
If it's a felony and it's a nonviolent offense, it's 90 days.
Yeah. So when somebody calls, let's say, little Johnny gets arrested and he had a vape pen when they pulled him over, and he got scared and freaked out and drove off and picked up an evading, right? Yeah. And they searched the car. He's got a 3rd-degree felony. He's got a state jail felony for the vape pen, and his bail is something crazy, $50,000, right? Is the family giving you the $50,000? No,
what bond companies do is generally charge 10%. You'll hear some of them say, oh, we'll only charge 2%. No, they're trying to reel you in. You give them the 2%, it's going to be part of the 10% or even more.
That's like a down payment. Maybe.
That's what it is, yeah. So that's why they think, oh, I want to find a place that's 2%. There's nobody's going to do that for 2%. Bond companies wouldn't make any money like that. So it's 10%. As for the actual money, that's all the family owes. They don't owe anything on the $50,000, like you said in this situation. I'm liable for that. My financial backers are. So as for the fee, that's the only thing coming out now. People coming out of jail now have been getting scammed in the middle of the night. I've had several people who'll call me the next morning. Hey, Sal, why'd you call me at 3 a.m. asking for more money? So what do you mean? Well, somebody said they called from Freedom Bail Bonds, and we owed you another $1,000. So I had to go to Walmart and get a card, and they got scammed.
Wow.
So I tell people, hey, once you come out of jail, you're going to deal directly with me, nobody else. And be careful with scammers. God, they're slick.
Yeah.
So again, if you get bonded out, make sure you're talking to the right people, and then don't fall for that. So going back to that $50,000. That's just sitting there with like an IOU in the sheriff's office or district attorney's office. Actually, they're holding on to that. Again, if Johnny doesn't show up, that's when they stick it in my face after a year and say, "Hey, you owe us $50,000."
Right.
So I don't want to deal with that. So I try to nip it in the bud by doing my bounty hunt and stuff.
Right. So if a family calls and they say, "Hey, Johnny's got bail set at 50,000," and they give you the 10%, and you submit that bail bond, how long does it take before the person actually gets to come out?
Oh, usually, depends what jail. It's several hours down south of here. But if you're in BRCK County, it could take anywhere from 12 hours to 24 hours. They can
sometimes longer.
Time, yeah. And they have a magistrate there overnight, which is in the small towns. The judges show up around maybe 10, 11, and then they'll read everybody who got arrested. They'll read them their rights. They'll set a bond amount, and that's when I come in as a bondsman and I get together with Johnny's family, and we get them out. And that after I submit the bond, I said maybe a couple hours, sometimes maybe about an hour if you're lucky.
Yeah. I always advise people, especially in these more rural jurisdictions, to call the bail bondsman as soon as possible when your loved one gets arrested, because the magistrate, it's just the local judge that's going to go and set that bail so that your loved one can get out. They arrive at a certain time and then they're gone. You want your loved one out as soon as possible, and your local bail bondsman will know what the best time is to go do this, how quickly they can get it done, and kind of guide you through that process.
No, I've had people waiting there overnight, and they call me in the morning. I put my phone on vibrate. I used to keep that thing on all night, but man, I would get calls from meth heads or people who were drunk. Hey, I got to get my loved one out. No, hey, sit tight. We can't do anything until tomorrow morning. So I started putting my phone on vibrate. So when I wake up around 8 o'clock, 7:30, if it's early, and then I'll start looking at the calls, and I'll call these people back. I said, hey, listen, we got to sit tight. Well, I've been here at the jail waiting to get him out. Nobody's answering my questions. I said, nobody's going to answer the questions because he hasn't seen the judge. It's not official of what he was actually arrested, and there's no bond amount set, so nobody can do anything. So a lot of people are anxious to get their people out, but they have to wait for the process to fall into place, and it usually takes several hours.
Right. And just so you know, if you're in that situation where your loved one's been arrested, like in BRCK County, like Sal mentioned, they have judges working 24 hours to set bail. Even then, it takes a while. But in these smaller areas, they don't. The judges don't come in until the morning. So if your loved one gets arrested at 9 o'clock at night, they're not going to have bail set until the morning. And there's nothing that the bondsman can do about that. The bondsman can't get the magistrate there. There's nothing I can do about that. I get people asking, well, can you call a magistrate and get them over there? No, they're not going to show up.
They'll be burning the phone at the jail too. And I get booking calling me, God, these people have been calling me all morning. Sal, I said, they don't understand. They didn't talk to me. So once I tell people just wait to get with the bondsman, and some attorneys have the authority to go on and bond too. So they want to do that route. But I tell a lot of people to hold off on the attorney situation until we let the dust settle and we decide what kind of legal representation is going to be needed. Some things that could be like a Class C misdemeanor, or they may get a PR bond. So again, I just tell people to sit tight and wait for them to be seen by the judge. And then usually, 24 hours is you by law. You have to see. Actually, 24 is usually, but 48 hours is the max. Okay, that's right.
I had an issue with one of the counties down in the 81st about that a while back because they were.
Is it from the time of the arrest or from the time you get booked? Actually,
from the time of the arrest. Yeah,
really.
From the time
48 hours. Okay.
Yeah. So, and so when you call a bail bondsman, there are also times where there may be a hold on your loved one. So nowadays we see a lot of immigration holds, or in a domestic violence situation, they can institute, a 24-hour, 48-hour hold.
Yeah, the assault, family violence. And I think it's, is it mandatory? Because everybody's been held for 4 hours minimum.
It's up to the judge and up to the magistrate, but it starts at the time that the bond is posted.
That's right. Good point.
So a lot of times, if somebody's in a domestic violence situation and the magistrate has said, no, they're going to sit in here for an additional 24 hours, that 24 hours starts from the moment somebody like Sal post the bond.
That's right.
So you don't want to wait the 24 hours and then call the bondsman, because the 24-hour clock doesn't start until the bond is actually posted.
That's right. And everybody's ready to come out. And it's kind of like a cooling off period, I guess. Maybe that's the theory behind it. And it goes from 4 hours, 24. I've had even, I think, a 72 hours.
72 hours. They can do up to 72 hours.
And that's from the time I submit the bond. So people are anxious to get them out, or that person's anxious to get out. We got to wait for the bond to be submitted before the clock starts ticking.
Yeah. So we're up against our break, but when we return, we'll answer more questions about bail bonds in Texas and how they work with Sal Martinez.
The attorneys at BRCK Criminal Defense have helped over 5,000 clients move on with their lives. When an arrest or accusation turns your life upside down, we have the knowledge, experience, and integrity to get your life back on track. Traditional legal ethics, modern legal tactics, the best defense possible to get you through the criminal justice system. Search BRCK Criminal Defense to see our reviews and find out why so many of our clients have trusted us to fight for them. BRCK Criminal Defense, helping our clients move on with their lives.
So what I find that a lot of people don't understand is that the 10% that they're paying to the bail bondsman is a premium. It's a fee for a service. And once you post that bond, that's the service that you've provided. And the reason that I mention that is I've had, two types of situations pop up. I've had one where after the person posts the bond, let's say they're doing a payment plan, and then the case gets dismissed and they still owe money to the bondsman on the payment plan. They ask me, well, do I have to finish paying the bondsman? And I always explain, well, look, you paid for a service of getting your loved one out. That service was done. Contact your bondsman, but my understanding is you're still going to owe that money.
Well, there are different rates. And again, I mentioned that some of the bond companies will lure you by saying it's only 2%, but in fact, it's going to be generally 10%. And some will even go higher. They'll come up with reasons or excuses of why to bump it up to 15 or 20%.
I've seen bail bond companies that have asked for 100%.
That's ridiculous, man.
Which is,
that's
to me, it's
thievery,
unethical.
Man. That's right. That's right. And nobody can tell them anything. If anybody, the sheriff should be telling these companies to stop ripping people off. And I've had bond companies go over there and take people's property at home, their TVs. And I had a grandmother, who signed for her grandson to get out of jail, and he missed one court date, and the bond company took that grandmother's house. Yeah, poor lady died several months later. I mean, it was hard. She was heartbroken that the bond company did that. But that's there's some bad bond companies out there. But as for the money itself, it's a service fee as well. I literally have a checklist, and I go down the list weekly, and I make sure that people are checking in. If not, like I said, the lower risk, I just have them check in monthly. But people at the end of the nightmare, they're thinking after the case is dismissed or they pled out, they're asking for the money back. But think about the time and effort we put in, and also we put up collateral of ourselves, of our company, because we have a limit for the sheriff's office, so we have to pay for those services as well. And the money that we invested on that one client, we might have denied other people, so they have to consider that, but they don't understand that part. So
I think what people get confused is there are different types of bonds. And so when you're using a bail bondsman like Sal, you're doing what's called a surety bond. You have somebody, a surety, who is saying, hey, I promise this person's going to appear for court, and if not, I'm responsible for the money. But there's another type of bond called a cash bond. And a cash bond, your family puts up the entire amount. So like in the situation with Johnny, the family would have to come up with $50,000. That's
very rare. Sheriffs don't want to be dealing with that kind of cash.
Sure.
They're not cashiers. They're not going to have an officer sit, okay, bring in the money order and here's $10,000. They're not going to do that. They prefer to let us handle that financial aspect. Because,
and the matter of the fact is most people don't have that. Most people don't have $50,000 laying around that can be tied up for 3 years while a case goes to court. So most people go to a bail bondsman, and that's the service they're providing. They're saying, hey, we'll put up the $50,000. Our fee for doing that is the 10%.
That's right.
So, and again, it just comes up because people ask, hey, when the case is over or whatever it is, do I get my money back? Yeah. The other circumstance where it comes up is if they get acquitted at the end of a trial. They say, well, can I reach my bail bondsman and get the money back? And it's like, well, wait a minute, he posted a bond for you. Yeah. So,
and I feel bad. I mean, there's times that the cases have been dismissed within weeks, and I'm going to think, man, but I can't just refund money because of a judicial outcome. I have a business to run, and it's time and effort on our part. And again, with the financial backing, I need to have to cover that for that bond that we originally put in. So the bonds could be anywhere from $1,000 to $200,000. And then I said, bond companies generally charge 10%. So let's say it's a $200,000 bond. I'm not going to ask these people for $20,000. That's ridiculous. And I'll do payment plans. But this is me personally. I don't want to take so much money from these people because they're going to be suffering enough financial hardship. So I'll give them discounts. I'll work out a payment plan. But a lot of these other companies will take collateral, or they'll take the entire amount, and that's not right.
Well, let me ask you this: in a circumstance where maybe somebody does post collateral, let's say they say, oh, I have this land or whatever, and their loved one makes all the court appearances, and then the case is over. Maybe it got dismissed. Maybe they took probation. Whatever it is. What happens to the collateral?
That again is so financially, the obligation that they had, or the liability with the bond company, they've got to make sure they get some kind of documentation that they're done with the bond companies. Because again, some of these guys can go on and try to take that house. That poor lady, the grandmother, the example I just gave earlier, is something that everybody in the family says, come on, she didn't know what she was doing. She was elderly. Bondman didn't care. He took her house. So again, that's a civil thing that could take resolved in the courts.
But once the case is over, that kind of danger of the bond being forfeited or whatever, that ends. That the bond is valid until the end of the case.
That's right. The prosecutor's not going to come after me, so I'm not going to go after the client. And like I said, I hate even thinking that. The worst case scenario is somebody not showing up to court, and I've got to go on and not threaten. I would promise the person who signed little Johnny, hey, I'm going to sue you for this. You need to go and take initiative to go on and find him. And the one way I do it is explaining to them that the attorneys are going to be doing all that stuff, taking them civilly for the amount that they bonded out Johnny. And for me as a bondsman, when we were talking about the bounty hunting thing, I use some of my old law enforcement tactics, and I'll have people that know Johnny through associates in the underworld or wherever he hangs out, and I'll say, hey, listen, you know so-and-so, and people will give me tips. Hey, yeah, he's been hanging out at so-and-so place. So I don't make the arrest. I let the local authorities do that. So I'll notify the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. Hey, he's over here hanging out at the Stop and Rob. Can you go on and send a unit out here? Sometimes they'll do it. A lot of times, if law enforcement isn't really being cooperative because they're stuck with other issues, or I have a private investigator that I'll phone, and he'll go on and make the arrest for me.
And, one of the issues that you and I both deal with is occasionally I'll have clients who don't take their appearances in court seriously. Every day, at the firm, we have kind of a group chat, and, we have a lot of attorneys at the firm. We have a lot of clients, and you'll just see, hey, can somebody check on so-and-so? He's not here yet. Can somebody check on so-and-so? Explain why, missing court, even if it's just one court appearance, explain why that would be a big deal to a bail bondsman. Oh,
for me, like I said, I'm always thinking of one step ahead. I'm thinking, okay, have they been responsible enough to be checking in with me? Now, are they going to be responsible enough to be checking in with their higher authority, which is the court system? If they disrespect the court, then again, the warrant's going to be issued and everything hits the fan. So again, it goes back to them. Let's say I couldn't get a ride, or I woke up late, or I had to work. Man, the judge is not going to consider that. You disrespect a judge when you don't show up to court. So that's what happens on this.
And then on your end, that promise that you made of, hey, if this person doesn't show, I'm going to pay you the $50,000.
Oh, I get a nasty gram for the clerk. This guy's out here. God dang it! So I got to go after him.
Yeah, that whole process starts.
That's right. Yeah, and that's where again it gets ugly, and then that's where the civil threat. I said I hate saying threaten the people who sign him out. I said, listen, you are responsible for getting him out. So I told that loved one. I try to get family members involved. I don't try to have like the boyfriends and girlfriends, because they're always breaking up, or a friend of a cousin, a neighbor's going to get this guy out. No, I want a family member, because family members are a little bit closer to the defendant, and they'll know where to find him.
Well, and the advice that I always give is like, look, if your loved one misses court for whatever reason, let's say it really was an emergency or whatever, they just forgot. The sooner that you let your attorney know, and the sooner that I can get you into court, the better the outcome's going to be.
That's right.
Okay, so if you blow a court date, you should never blow a court date. If there's something going on, notify your attorney, notify your bail bondsman. But it happens. But if it does, you need to notify your attorney as soon as possible, and you need to make arrangements to get back into court as soon as possible.
Do some damage control. Exactly right.
Because there's times where I'll talk to a prosecutor and they'll say like, well, if you can get him here next week, that's fine. We'll let it go. But if you do what sometimes people do when they get scared and all of a sudden you're not returning my calls, you're not returning your bail bondsman's calls, the situation just gets worse and worse. And then odds are you're going to end up being taken into custody on a warrant at some point.
That's right. And reputation is really important in small areas like the counties that I work at. I like I say, you give me a last name of somebody, I can pretty much tell you what kind of family they are or the people they run with. So if you fail to appear one time and then you try to get bonded out again, a lot of bond companies won't do it, or they're going to charge a little bit more because they're a higher risk. Again, the word gets out, certain people are always in trouble. And I've had people I get them out multiple times. But if they're taking care of business with me, they showed respect to me, I'll get them out. But once the moment that you show that you don't go to court or it's in your history, I won't deal with them anymore.
Let me ask you this. Can a bail bondsman get a bail amount that is set by a judge reduced?
No, bail bondsmen don't have that authority. They allow the attorney, the representing attorney, going to do that. And if he can do that, especially on these $200,000 bonds, I tell the family, you know what, let your attorney work something out with the judge and try to get the bond reduction. It makes it easier for us as well, because I don't want to be thinking about a $200,000 liability out there running around, whereas I would rather have something maybe $100,000 or even $50,000. Sure. If y'all can do that, that makes it a lot easier for us as well. Sure, we could get more money out of that whole $200,000 deal, but I look
at more liability on your side.
More liability, and I sleep a lot less.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things is, when we go to court to try to get your bail amount reduced, let's say, to use Sal's example, bail set at $200,000. And Sal is saying, hey, look, if you can get it down to $100,000, I feel more comfortable. I'll get them out, for what the money
saves
that you
the family money as well, too. And then they feel a little bit more relieved. It's easier for them, but go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And so when we have that hearing, one of the considerations of the judge is, has this person made all of their court appearances in the past? So if you've had a case previously where you failed to appear, that gets held against you when I'm going into court trying to argue that your bail should be reduced, and that if the judge reduces it, you are going to make your court appearances. So failing to appear in court doesn't just mess up the current case that you're on, doesn't just mess up, your bail bond with your bail bondsman. It messes up any hope you have in the future of getting bail reduced on your case.
That's right. And I think it's kind of like a tattoo or a scar on somebody. Let's go back to the DWI situation. You have people that are getting arrested for DWI, and they said, hey, this is my second DWI for some reason. This was back in 1990. For some reason, the system keeps those old DWIs on their record. So this is going to be your second DWI. The bond's going to be higher, and again, a lot more complicated regarding your driver's license suspension, and very likely a little more stricter punitive measures are going to be applied at the end of the process.
Well, and that raises another issue is different counties set different bail amounts.
That's right.
A lot of people don't understand that. I'll get calls from families that'll say, well, my loved one got arrested for a DWI. Their bail is set at $10,000. But that doesn't seem fair because, my cousin got arrested for a DWI in BRCK County and their bail was only, they got a PR bond, or the bail was only $5,000. Why is that? For
some reason, I don't know. There's some kind of guidelines that they're following within these counties.
There's a bail schedule.
There's a schedule. Okay, so one of them's been very lucrative in one county that I'm working at. The other one's a little bit less lucrative. But again, I don't understand the system and when they apply the circumstances for this situation.
There's a recommended bail schedule that gets put out by the DA's office, because I remember one time I was reviewing a case in the DA's office and the bail schedule was posted on the wall.
I got to see a copy of that. Save me a copy. Take a picture.
10 years ago, and I did. I took a picture of it just because, it showed the recommended bail amounts for different levels of offenses.
Okay.
So there's a recommended bond schedule, but the magistrates are free to set it at whatever they feel is reasonable given the circumstances. circumstances.
And it's their discretion too. I mean, they listen to whatever the defendant has to say, and also they look at the report of what the officer had written down and the complaint. And I think a lot of discretion is a very powerful thing, not only within the judges, but also in law enforcement regarding if they're going to actually make an arrest or they're going to let this person go. So again, I think it has a lot to do with it. I've had people that were egregious offenses that are usually 10, 20,000 minimum. 2,000. I'm like, why? The judge must have liked whatever the defendant said to the judge.
So, as a bail bondsman, what is the most serious thing somebody can do to upset their bail bondsman?
I think just for me, I just like people checking in. Just do me that favor and show some respect that I'm looking down at my checklist. And if I don't see you checking in either the last several weeks or last several months, then I call the person who signed them out and I say, listen, so-and-so hasn't been checking in. I'm going to revoke the bond. First of all, I start asking questions about where the person is at. Well, I haven't seen him. He's not calling me anymore. There we go. He's running. That's the first thing I start thinking. I'm always thinking negative in my business. So if I don't get a call or he's not checking in, doesn't update his file, then I revoke the bond. I go back to the judge who initially magistrated him and say, hey, judge, I'd like to get off the bond on, sorry, my phone's ringing. Somebody wants to get out of jail. They got to wait. So I tell them, you know what? If they don't do that, then I start taking the efforts to go on and get off the bond. And once I get off the bond, the judge grants it. Then the warrants are issued, and I can go back after that person.
Yeah, and so it's a serious thing. So if you're out on a bond, check in with your bondsman, follow the rules that the judge has set out for you, and you'll be able to stay out while your case is pending. Failure to do those things means there's a good chance you're going to sit in jail until your case is resolved, and that doesn't do anyone any good.
No, and a lot of the bond companies will find any reason to get off the bond. So again, there's some that are very, they prefer just to have you rearrested and not even deal with you if you don't check in or pay the amount. So you can go to a judge. Bond companies can say, hey, judge, this guy's not paying me. I want to get off the bond. Judges say, get out of here. You have to give them other reasons besides that of why they want to get off the bond. So a lot of bond companies will try to get off the bond, so that's less liability and less paperwork for them.
And so make it easy on yourself and follow and do everything that you should be doing.
That's right.
And again, we've been talking with Sal Martinez, former DPS trooper, former DEA agent, acclaimed author of Narc, Convictions of an Undercover Agent, that you can find on Amazon.
Get the one with the gun and the coke.
He's got fantastic stories about there in that book from his time as a DEA agent.
Drugs, sex, rock and roll.
Yeah, dealing with the cartels over in Mexico. And he's a bail bondsman from Freedom Bail Bonds. So this is BRCK Criminal Defense. You can always reach us at 210-874-5080. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to So You Got Arrested. If you found this podcast helpful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. For more legal insights and real talk from the front lines of the Texas justice system, follow us and subscribe. And remember, BRCK Criminal Defense has your back. For more information, visit us at brckdefense.com.